Welcome to AI News Digest 2026-0621. Today's 6 stories. Story 1, Booz Allen warns Chinese AI models insert vulnerabilities in U.S. code. Story 2, Top 7 Small Language Models in 2025, Smart and Accessible AI. Story 3, AI Benchmarks 2026, compare 300-plus LLM benchmarks and tests. Story 4, Large language models exhibit greater diagnostic anchoring than physicians. Story 5, benchmarking a local schema-constrained large language model pipeline for abstract screening and evidence mapping. Story 6, large language model, Wikipedia, updated. Story 1, Booz Allen warns Chinese AI models insert vulnerabilities in U.S. code. A newly published peer-reviewed study has found something that challenges a core assumption many people make about artificial intelligence in medicine: that it is more objective than human doctors. The research, published in Science Direct, tested large language models and experienced physicians on their susceptibility to a well-known cognitive trap called diagnostic anchoring. Anchoring bias is what happens when a doctor, or in this case an AI, locks onto an initial piece of information about a patient and then fails to adequately update their thinking when new, contradictory evidence comes in. It is one of the most common sources of diagnostic error in medicine, and according to this study, AI systems exhibit this bias more severely than experienced human clinicians. This is a significant finding, and here is why it matters so much right now. AI diagnostic tools are not hypothetical anymore. They are being rolled out in emergency departments, radiology suites, and primary care settings around the world. Health systems are betting that these tools will reduce error rates and support overwhelmed clinicians. But if the AI itself is more susceptible to anchoring than the very doctors it is supposed to assist, then deploying it without safeguards could actually make things worse, not better. The study adds to a growing body of evidence that large language models do not just make random mistakes, they make systematic, directional ones. Biases inherited from training data can manifest in ways that are consistent and predictable, which means they can skew clinical decisions in the same wrong direction repeatedly across many patients. For regulators, this research strengthens the case for mandatory cognitive bias testing as part of the approval process for AI medical devices. The FDA and the European Medicines Agency are already grappling with how to evaluate AI tools in clinical settings, and this study gives them a concrete, measurable dimension of risk to address. For clinicians, the takeaway is clear. AI-generated diagnoses should be treated as one data point, not as a definitive second opinion. And for AI developers, the work underscores that building a model that can answer medical questions correctly on a benchmark is not the same as building one that is safe to deploy in a real clinical environment. Story 2, Top 7 Small Language Models in 2025, Smart and Accessible AI. One of the most time-consuming tasks in clinical research is the systematic review, a rigorous process of scanning thousands of scientific abstracts to identify which studies are relevant enough to include in an analysis. It can take months of human effort and significant institutional resources. A new study published in the open-access medical journal Curious is testing whether a locally deployed, schema-constrained large language model pipeline can take on a significant portion of that burden reliably and accurately. The key design choices here are worth unpacking. First, the pipeline runs locally, meaning it does not send data to external cloud servers. This matters enormously in healthcare research, where unpublished data, patient-linked records, and proprietary clinical information are often involved. Cloud-based AI tools can run afoul of HIPAA and GDPR regulations, making local deployment not just a technical preference, but often a legal necessity. Second, the pipeline uses schema constraints, essentially forcing the AI to produce structured, standardized outputs rather than open-ended text. This reduces the risk of the model hallucinating irrelevant information or making inconsistent decisions, which is a well-documented problem when LLMs are used for classification tasks without guardrails. The pipeline also includes evidence mapping as a capability, meaning it does not just make binary include or exclude decisions. It also organizes and contextualizes the evidence it reviews. This is a more sophisticated function that could meaningfully accelerate the downstream stages of systematic review production. If this approach performs well in benchmarking, it could be transformative for smaller research institutions that lack the staffing to conduct large-scale literature reviews efficiently. It could also reduce the time between when evidence accumulates and when it gets synthesized into clinical guidelines, a lag that has real consequences for patient care. The study is published open access under a CC BY license, meaning any researcher in the world can read, build on, and adapt the methodology at no cost. Story 3, AI Benchmarks 2026. Compare 300+ LLM benchmarks and tests. Not every important document in the AI landscape is a research paper or a product launch. Sometimes the most influential text is the one that the most people actually read. Wikipedia's article on large language models is exactly that kind of document. It is the first stop for millions of students, journalists, policymakers, and curious professionals trying to understand what these systems are and how they work. And because of that reach, the way it frames the technology matters enormously. The article defines large language models as neural networks trained on vast amounts of text for natural language processing tasks, particularly language generation. It notes that these systems can generate, summarize, translate, and analyze text across many contexts, and that they are the foundational technology behind modern chatbots. Crucially, it also flags that biased or inaccurate training data can make an LLM's output less reliable. That is a simple sentence, but its inclusion in the world's most read reference source means it is now part of the baseline understanding that billions of people will encounter when they first look up this technology. The article places LLMs within a rich taxonomy of machine learning approaches: supervised learning, reinforcement learning, self-supervised learning, and more, helping readers understand that LLMs did not emerge from nowhere, but are part of a decades-long scientific tradition. It also references a wide range of architectures from transformers to diffusion models, giving technically inclined readers pathways to deeper exploration. The limitations of this source are real and worth acknowledging. Wikipedia is collaboratively edited, which means it can lag behind rapidly moving developments or reflect editorial blind spots. In a field where major milestones happen monthly, a static reference struggles to keep pace. But that is precisely why monitoring what Wikipedia says about AI matters, because for most people, it is not a starting point for deeper research. It is the research. And the mental models it instills shape how society thinks about accountability, capability, and risk in artificial intelligence for years to come. Story 4. Large language models exhibit greater diagnostic anchoring than physicians. A peer-reviewed study published on Science Direct finds that LLMs display more pronounced diagnostic anchoring bias compared to experienced physicians, potentially distorting clinical decision-making when AI is used as a diagnostic aid. The research adds to the body of safety and alignment literature examining cognitive biases in deployed LLMs. This is particularly important as AI medical tools see growing real-world adoption. Story 5. Benchmarking a local schema-constrained large language model pipeline for abstract screening and evidence mapping. This research article benchmarks a locally run, schema-constrained LLM pipeline designed to automate abstract screening and evidence mapping in systematic reviews. The work demonstrates a practical, open-source friendly approach to deploying LLMs for high-throughput scientific literature classification. It addresses a real research bottleneck with a reproducible, structured methodology. Story 6. Large Language Model Wikipedia Updated. The Wikipedia article on LLMs has been recently updated and covers the historical trajectory from BERT and GPT-1 through GPT-3 and beyond, noting the decline of encoder-only models in academic research. It provides foundational context on decoder-only architectures that now dominate the field. While not breaking news, it serves as a reliable, up-to-date reference reflecting the current state of LLM development.